And I told you you'd have some options with this command, and here they are. There's 4 basic options here: force, ignore, case, list, and time. Force just makes it so that you don't have to see that initial dialog, and you don't have to click enter Y to start the configuration replacement. List is pretty interesting. List will show you what commands it's replacing, and if there's multiple passes, remember we said it could have up to 5 passes, it will show you per pass which commands. So if there's pass 1, it did these commands, pass 2, it did these commands. It's kind of nice to watch. Ignore case, I don't know what the hell that's for, honestly. It instructs the configuration to ignore the case of the configuration confirmation. Your guess is as good as mine. Time is actually pretty interesting. Time is, put this on if you put like a configure replace NVRAM startup config, and then you enter time 10. So what that does is it'll go ahead and it'll do the configuration replacement, and then there's a window of 10 minutes afterwards. If within that 10-minute window you do not type in the command, I believe it's configuration or configure confirm, then when that 10-minute window ends, we'll roll back the replacement. So you could replace the running config with the startup config, and then 10 minutes later it would roll that change back to where the running config would revert back to its previous version. With that, you do have to have the archive configuration set up, and we'll look at this on the command line and in another slide, I believe, as well. And then here there's a couple bullet points that you'll want to know for the real world and possibly for the CCNA security exam, and that is that the list keyword must be entered before the force and time keyword. Force must come before time, so just keep that in mind. If you had to use all 3 options, you would obviously have to list them as, list, then force, then time. And the configure replace feature also implements a configuration lock. This is actually used with a couple of different Cisco features. So basically what's going to happen is when you issue the configure replace command, iOS is going to lock the running configuration from any other changes until that configure replacement is done. And you can see the benefit with that. You don't want to be replacing this configuration and have somebody in there at the same time changing the running configuration. This is a great feature, but with any feature like this, there's always a possibility that for whatever reason the configuration lock doesn't get cleared. So there is also another command that is clear configuration lock, and you can issue that in the off case that you do a configure replace command and for whatever reason it locks a configuration and then doesn't unlock it. Keep that in mind. I hope that you never have to use it, but it's good to know that it exists. There's also a show configuration lock command, and we will see that on the CLI and in the next couple of slides actually as well. And you can see down here, this is the logging that takes place when you're doing the configure replace, and you can see rollback, it locks it, has an exclusive lock, and then when it's done it releases it, and that really only took it's 29 seconds, something like that, from beginning to end. So during the configuration replacement function, it will lock out the running config. So this is what the output of the show configuration lock command looks like, and in this case we're not running configuration replacement, so this is the output that you would get when it's not locked. And you can see the type is no lock, state is free, lock active, and time and expiration are all set to 0. And conversely, here's the output of the show configuration lock command when we are running the configure replace command. And in this case, I had telnetted into R1 from another router and issued the configure replace command. This output is from the console connection. Just telling you this because a lot of this information will not generally be available if you're not issuing the command from a remote connection. So the username I used was packetlab. You can see it's locked, class is rollback, the remote IP address is kind of nice. In this case, you could see if you do a show configuration lock, you can say, oh, well, somebody on from this device, the name of packetlab is in there, and he has a configuration locked. And you can see it's been locked for 5 seconds. There's also a lock expiration timer. I think that's another feature. So it's 600 seconds, so 10 minutes. I don't remember. That's a good question. We'll have to look at this on the CLI. I was going to say, I don't know if this is something that Cisco has in case it doesn't release the configuration, or if it takes too long for a process and the configuration is still locked out. But what this might be is I might have issued configure replace with the time setting of 10 minutes. I'm not sure. I touched on this briefly in the earlier slide. There is an option for time with the configure replace command, and it's pretty interesting option. It's actually kind of nice because it gives you a safety net for the configure replacement. And what you will do is when you specify the configuration that you want to replace the running configuration with, you have the option of adding time. And various Cisco documentation says this is in seconds, and some of it says in minutes. Actually, the page that I pulled this from, this used to say seconds. I changed it to minutes. On that same page, there's references to seconds and minutes. The version of iOS I used, it was in minutes. I have a hard time believing it would be in seconds, because to specify 2 seconds would be strange. What you're going to want to do is when you use this command, just use your question mark afterwards to see if it's asking for input in seconds or minutes. Anyways, the one caveat with this command is this command you do need to enable configuration archiving. I'm not going to go through that in this video. There's another set of videos that goes through this in detail. Suffice to say, you only really need to do 2 commands in the configuration. You, in the global configuration mode, type archive and then provide a path to a local. Could use a remote as well. I believe you could use a TFTP server. In this case, we're just going to put it to our flash and just provide a file name. Again, not going to go too deep into this, but for this feature to work, you will need to have this enabled. So then you enter config replace, the config that you're going to use to replace the running config, time, and then the time in either seconds or minutes. It goes through its normal configuration replacement steps, and here we can see it took 2 passes. Rollback is complete. When we check the difference between the startup and the running config, we see that there is no difference. So everything's normal. But keep in mind, in this case, we did configure time to be 2 minutes. So now if we don't do anything, 2 minutes later, we're going to roll back that configuration. That's where the archive comes in. It's rolling back actually to an archived configuration, because what it's doing is it's taking the running configuration at the time that you issued that command. It's archiving it, so it's saving it out to flash in this case, and then you're going to take the startup configuration, in this case, bear with me, replace the running configuration with the startup configuration. Now, if you don't do anything for 2 minutes, it's going to roll back and it's going to replace the running configuration, which was the startup configuration, with the archived configuration, which was the running configuration. Did I confuse you there? So in essence, we've rolled back our replacement. Now, if within our time period, in this case 2 minutes, we do decide that we want to keep the configuration replacement with the file that we specified, all we have to do is from enable mode, just issue the configure confirm command. You can see there's no parameters with that command, and it really doesn't do much for you. It doesn't say, okay, configuration has been confirmed, we're keeping this configuration. You enter this command and that's it. Kind of anticlimactic. But once that 2-minute window elapses, it's not going to restore configuration replacement configuration. Yes, it could get to be kind of complicated. So that's going to wrap up the theory portion of this. I ran across this a while ago, and I haven't used it because when I initially ran across it, it's part of the configuration rollback feature set. But I thought, this is a nice command, but I really don't want to be setting up archive on all my routers. As we saw today, you don't really need to do that, with the exception of the time option, which is kind of a corner case scenario where I don't know that you're going to be using that quite a bit. It's a nice command, and it is useful because it's a rollback for the rollback, I guess. Like I said, there is documentation out there that does seem to indicate that this is part of the configuration rollback and requires some of those commands to be configured for this. As we've seen, that's not the case, but as always, this can vary with platform and iOS version, so make sure you check it out on your equipment. For lab rats, this is an excellent command because you don't have to reload your routers to throw new configs on or revert your configuration. You could have flash memory that has different configurations, like say you have one for some OSPF exercises, one for some EIGRP. You may have the same topology, but you want to throw different configurations on there instead of reloading and then trying to load in another configuration. You can just, without reloading the router, go ahead and specify the configuration that you want to replace the running configuration with. So it's really nice, and the ability to quickly load a quote-unquote known good configuration into the running configuration is extremely beneficial in a lab and in the real world. Definitely add this to your networking toolbox, as it were, and I think that you'll find that it's a very nice command to know, and it will help you out. Let's go ahead and I will see you on the CLI in the lab portion.